Ciao ragazzi, sono al tavolo, sono un po' emozionato con Howard Hamburg che ha conosciuto tutti i più grandi maghi del passato e adesso andiamo un po' a scoprire qualche storia interessante. So, Howard, do you remember the first time you met Vernon?
Yes, Ray Grismer was a friend of mine, and Ray Grismer was very close to the professor. He had some beautiful ring work. Ray was very, very good. And it was the first week in 1970. I'd been to the castle before because my best friend Tony Giorgio took me there. I saw some magicians work, I think it was in 1963, and he introduces me to Charlie Miller, but I never went anymore. I saw magicians, but I wasn't into magic. In 1970, Ray said...
So you wasn't into magic?
No.
So
I was other things with cards.
Oh, okay. So you knew Tony Giorgio?
Oh, he was my best friend for 53 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. One of the best card muckers and one of the best ice guys I ever met.
Yeah.
Really good. Anyhow, Ray was a school teacher, and he played jazz piano.
Yeah.
And he said, Howard, I have a student who I'm teaching piano to, and in return he's teaching Ray magic. Would you like to meet him? I said, sure. So I think it was like the 5th or 6th of January 1970. I walked into the Magic Castle with Ray, and Ray said, Howard, my piano student, Vernon. And I knew who the man was, you know. And we sat down, and he asked me, what I was interested in magic. I said, well, I really wasn't, but I could do Triumph. I could do that. He said, look, next Monday they have auditions. You go before a committee.
Yeah.
And they ask you some questions, and you do a couple things. I said, Professor, I actually call him Mr. Vernon. I said, Mr. Vernon, like I say, I can only do Triumph. He said, get a couple books over the weekend, read something. You pick up 3 things, you'll do it.
Wow.
So that Monday I went downstairs into the castle. They had this huge table, these guys with white badges, you know, a membership committee. Yeah. And they sat me down at the table. It was dark in the room except for the table. And when did you first get in magic? Oh, when my uncle took a nickel from my ear. And what books have you read? Royal Road to Card Magic and Expert Card Technique and so forth. And maybe because I was nervous, I was shuffling the cards and cutting them while they were asking me questions. So one of the fellows said to me, well, we don't want to see you just shuffling and cutting cards. Would you show us something? I said, I already have. And he said, what do you mean? And I turned the deck face up, and it was a new deck order.
Wow.
And I didn't know this, but Charlie Miller and Vernon were on the membership committee, and they were in the back, in the dark. You couldn't see them. And this is what Vernon said. He said, do we need to see anything more, boys? And so I got in the Magic Castle. I never did a trick.
Funny story.
Yeah.
I know it could be a tough question. Do you remember the first thing Vernon showed you?
The first thing he showed me, the first thing he actually talked to me about was presentation.
Wow, okay.
Because I had asked him what he felt was the difference between today's generation and his generation of growing up. Remember when I first met him, when Ray Grismer said, this is my piano student, I was awestruck because I knew who the man was. And he answered, today's generation, the methods are far superior. But in his generation, presentation and technique was far superior. And so he would often talk about subtleties, naturalness, structure, and so forth. And then he would sometimes give you a little problem. He said, I'm having trouble with this one. Maybe you can come up with it. He made you think. Yeah. But as far as showing me anything, I saw him perform Cups and Balls. I saw him perform at the Magic Castle. But he wasn't the type of fellow who, when he had friends around him, just did things for the sake of doing them. Just conversations and talking about magic was far more important than just doing
I understand. I understand. Beautiful.
I show you something that was interesting. Should I show you? I don't know.
It's a pleasure.
This is what Francis Carlyle would do. If he saw if the card went back and he saw you looking at the deck,
Okay.
you look at it, that's what he would do. He'd bounce your eyes.
Wow.
He would just do that. He wouldn't do this. He would just. It's like the same thing as this.
Okay.
But he would just do this, and so he did a lecture. There were 35 magicians, and the professor asked me to introduce them. And I said, Professor, you were in New York with Francis. You should introduce him. And Francis said to me, at one point, Howard, I'm going to ask all the magicians, not to take their eyes off the deck. He says, don't look at me, watch them. And about a half an hour later, he had someone select a card, it went back, and he told the whole group, don't take your eyes off the deck. He did this, and 35
Wow.
He called it bouncing their eyes off the deck. It was just a natural thing that you look up.
Wow, beautiful.
Yeah, it was wonderful. And Tony Giorgio was a great performer. You know, first of all, you see magicians, they're doing the throws and so forth, and they do this.
Yes.
And he learned from Vernon that, let's say, he says right or left or right. They say right, and they're wrong. Yeah.
Okay.
And blah, 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 blah. It says here, there. And they say here, and they're wrong. And he says, here's your problem. You got to look at the center of the card. The center. That's what Tony Giorgio did. That's what Vernon did.
Okay.
In fact, he did it from the other side. That's what he did. He says, look at the center. Don't look at the edge. Look at the center of the card. Instead of doing the bend.
Yeah, the bend openly.
So now he was doing it, and he says, here, and they say, here.
Yeah.
And he does the throw again, and he does this. Is okay. Is it left or right or left?
In
they
the
say
center.
here. And the audience starts feeling sorry for him. And after the third one that they guess here, he waits till the audience is quiet. And under his breath, like he's talking to himself, he says, how do they know? He wasn't talking to them.
Yeah.
How do they know? Now he makes a throw, and he says, here, they say here. He says, oh, of course. Why don't you tell me? But that's how Vernon showed him. You don't bend the corner. You just say you have to watch.
So that by accident.
Yeah, that's what he did. But his thing about how do they know? And they're all sitting there real smug. They don't want to say anything to him. Yeah. And then he double crosses them. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful.
I think my only piece of advice to magicians today: please stop thinking like a magician and think like a layperson. You'll have much more, you'll put much more effort into what you're doing.
Yes.
You know, I've never ever had a layperson select a card and say to me, that was a nice diagonal shift.
Thank you very much.
You're more than welcome.
Thank you. Hope to see you soon.
I hope our paths cross sometime in the future.
Yeah.
One thing, people ask me, since I don't do magic for a living,
yes.
I never have, they ask me what magic means to me. And I have the same response. Memories and friendships. They can never take that away from me. I'm a lucky person. To have a guy like Juan Tamariz or a fellow like the Vernons and the Slidinis and the Francis Carlyles, to be friends with them. It means a lot. Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're welcome. they should never ever forget the shoulders of the giants that they stood on. They should never ever forget those people that put all of this before them to use for
Yeah.
tools. Don't ever forget the people that who you stood on, who supported you. That's what I always say. I'm afraid someday some 12-year-old kid's gonna die, Vernon.
I understand.
You know, yeah, that's the shameful part of it.
Yeah, I understand.
They all know Copperfield and they all know Houdini. Well, what happens to the real giants of this business? You know, yeah.
Thanks, really. Hope to see you soon.
I hope so too, buddy.
Ragazzi, una leggenda vivente, Howard Hamburg, speriamo di rincontrarci presto.